So we need independent learners, not just for COVID, but because jobs change. So in the US, 25% of the workforce changes jobs each year. That's only going to accelerate. And when they switch jobs, they have to learn new things. And then knowledge changes very quickly as well. So you need to keep learning new things and new state-of-the-art ideas. And then, of course, you wish people could learn about emerging issues, say COVID or climate crisis. You'd like them to know how to go about learning and figuring out what to believe. So if you look at China, right, they like India, have a centralized education system. And every school looks different. Everybody teaches differently, even though there's a prescribed curriculum, right? So it is, education is incredibly decentralized in reality. The test, right, the test is the one thing that's truly centralized. Now, you may be in a school that has a principal or a headmaster or a headmistress that tells you how you have to teach, and hopefully they know what they're telling you, right? So there can be local dynamics. But my experience is that most teachers try and come up with good ways to teach. And, you know, they try and do it within the curriculum. Sometimes they add their own secret sauce. But, you know, it is, I'm sure it's possible that there are places where people feel as though they can't explore because they're having to race through the curriculum. Yeah. So part of the problem of the decentralization is it's very hard to know that something's taken hold. And it becomes so obvious after a while. So I think one of the great technical impacts in education is YouTube, where if a teacher has a projector and a computer and they're talking about the solar system, they're going to find a video to show, right? It's just, and nobody now thinks of this as an amazing thing. But, you know, 20 years ago, you couldn't do that. You had to figure out how the solar system moves by looking at a static picture. So there are these innovations, you know, and I personally don't have the $1 million theory that says which ones are going to succeed and which ones aren't. But I think something that's easy, something that augments teaching rather than replaces it, is much more easily accommodated within the classroom.
Coming back to the application of AI in isolation is nothing, right? Technology doesn't do anything in isolation. It's an enabler to the outcome that you want to promote. And Dan talked about a few examples of that, of, you know, how technology or AI is enabling mastery with the spaced repetition concept. Where we've enjoyed is to be able to, you know, focus on the biggest problem that we have in education, which is to see the level of disengagement, right? If you are going to talk about a teen, 63% of them are completely disengaged from the schooling system by the time they are hitting the 14s and the 15s. And why is it that? Why is it that Facebook can make this, you know, information or knowledge coming is far more pleasurable than our schooling systems cannot? So Facebook pretty much makes sure that you are just giving them information at the periphery of their knowledge. So an example might be that if you've got a Facebook feed that is coming in of continuous familiar stuff, you're disengaging. If you've got something which comes which is very unfamiliar, a foreign language, you'll again disengage. So you have to be able to make sure that the new information that's coming in is just at the periphery of knowledge that the child already has. And that's one concept that we've taken in. How do you automatically curate content and serve it to the natural interests of the child? Allow him to be able to build that knowledge tree for himself, right? So a content recommendation engine could easily do that and continue the engagement. And that's the first step of just exploiting his current interests. But you can gradually then nudge him to explore other aspects as well. So engagement is one bit. The second one is obviously the one that education tends to use much better is gamification, right? In classic education system, you start with the 100% perfect child and grade them down for every mistake that they make, which is very different from how adult life works, right? In adult life or professional life, you say, listen, I want you to fail fast. I want you to be innovative. But in education system, I'm going to give you a slap every time you make a mistake. So imagine taking a clue from the gaming system and saying, hey, I'm going to start you with a level 0 and bring you up. And I'm going to give you a mark down if you're not doing it right. Let them control their own self-directed exploration play to discover that path for themselves. So those are two things that we've looked at. But this is the basic thing. That's what I think, that this is what we are good at, but you want to do better than that, right? You want to get around to active learning. You want to get around to critical thinking. And that's where the integrative AI comes into play. And one example, I think the example that Dan pretty much took on you, Manit, which is to say that, listen, you did a good job of sort of summarizing what I spoke. That's what technology is enabling you to do, right? The concept is based on abstraction and abstraction AI. So one example may be that, hey, I asked a child to read an article, but I want him to be able to summarize what were the key points, right? 1 hour lecture, 3-4 key points. That's where you're able to use technology and say, let's match the nouns that he's used, let's match the phrases that he's used. Okay, you know what? He completely summarized it in a very different way. That's fine. You can use ontology as a technology and figure out where were the interconnections and the ideas that he's talked about. So those are the ones that technology is enabled. But like I said, I think AI is just an enabler. It's basically, I would say, it's like a exceptional scholar that is sitting right on your shoulder, being available to you real time, being able to give you the feedback which no other scholar would be able to do. So it's just a means of delivering that, one of the effective means, and we see many more applications to that coming up. So good times to be able to play and see that evolution.
Thank you, Anjali. I think very exciting times. And one of the challenges that you share around children navigating this whole world of online information, and in fact, for the most part, it may also contribute to actually increasing or reinforcing your biases. Uh, Classic examples that we saw in the national elections were, if you clicked on something 4 times, if you saw 4 videos of a certain kind and you got interested in them, then you'd get 4,000 of those, and you probably would get very little of the other perspective. So how do platforms like yours ensure that kids are getting all the perspectives so they can see all sides of the picture to make their own assessment, and then to give them those skills?